all know that CI/CD is super important in our serverless applications. But building CI/CD pipelines with good practices, it's tough. And when I mean with good practices, I mean infrastructure as code. Usually we tend to build our CI/CD pipelines by going to the AWS console and clicking through and getting pipelines, but then that's very hard to replicate in other projects, and it's very tedious to do it over and over again for all our microservices. So in this video I want to talk about CDK pipelines. CDK pipelines is a new feature from CDK, and it allows you to kind of create pipelines integrated with your microservice, your CDK microservice, that will auto-update, and it comes with a lot of components that make building the pipeline super easy. So in a nutshell, CDK pipelines will allow you to build a pipeline as infrastructure as code using CDK. You will deploy it only once from your computer, and then the pipeline, you need to have it like all the code in a remote repository, like a good practice. You will have it in GitHub, code commit, whatever you like. And then every time that code repository updates, the pipeline will run. And that means that the pipeline will not only launch your resources inside that pipeline. So for example, if you want to deploy a lambda function with an API gateway and you make changes to that, but also it will update itself. So that's quite interesting. It's a self-mutating pipeline, so you can add, for example, new stages or validations to the pipeline. Just push the code to GitHub and then the pipeline will kind of automatically mutate into what you want. So that's pretty cool. So what are CDK pipelines? Well, in the language of CDK, it's a high-level construct which configures a code pipeline for your CDK application. If you have used code pipeline has stages, and inside stages has actions, and with CDK pipelines you can create those stages as well as those actions in a very simple way. And it comes with some actions by default. So CDK pipelines come with 4 stages by default. The first stage is the source. And the source is basically getting the code from GitHub or whatever is your remote repository. The second stage is the build, where we are going to compile the code and do a CDK synth. This is the artifact for our pipeline and the code that will be later deployed of our pipeline. Then, this is an interesting one. The third stage is the update pipeline stage, where we will grab the artifact of our pipeline and we will deploy it. So here, if your pipeline is changing, you will see that we'll go back to the build and it will do some weird things, but it's doing its thing there. And the last of these mandatory staging is the publish asset. This stage will prepare and publish all the assets in S3 or the container repository where you can deploy all your things, and this will do it for the right version and for the right account of that you're going to deploy. With CDK pipelines, you can not only deploy in one account, in one region, you can do it in multiple accounts, in multiple regions, and you will see how easy it is to do that. So I want to show you a demo, and I want to make it very simple. I will be using one account and one region, but I will show you what you need to do if you want to do it for multiple accounts and multiple regions. I will have 2 different environments, pre-prod and prod, and I will add some validation in the middle of the production and the pre-prod to validate that everything is good. If you like this type of video, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone, because this helps my channel to grow. And also let me know in the comments after you watch this demo what else you would like me to show you of CDK pipelines. I want to start from the very basics, but this is something that we can expand and build more interesting pipelines. So let's continue with the demo. For doing this demo, you need to have an AWS account, CDK install, and make sure that you have the latest version of CDK. It updates all the time. Make sure that you have configured CDK. I will be using GitHub as my remote repository. You can have whatever, but I will be giving you steps for GitHub, so that's something you have to have if you want to replicate this. Let's get into the code. So the first thing we are going to do, as always, is to create a new directory where we are going to put this thing. The code is available of this application in the GitHub, so I'll leave you the link under it. In this repository, I will create a new CDK project using TypeScript. You can do this in any of the supported languages of CDK. I like TypeScript. And this will initialize this with a starter project from TypeScript that basically we are going to scrap it all. So if you want to start with an empty CDK project, that's also good. So after the initialization is done, we are going to install some of the libraries that we need in order to work with this project, like Lambda, API Gateway, Code Pipeline Actions, and I think that's it. And when we install this, then we can use them in our CDK. If you don't know what CDK is or what is to build a serverless application with CDK, check my video on building the simplest CDK project, and basically we will be doing something even more simple in this video, so if you don't know what we are building, that video will help you out because I will not explain you what is the application that we are deploying, one thing at a time. Then I'm going to install CDK Pipelines, and then that's a library that we have available as well. When we have downloaded the whole internet in our computer, we are ready to get started. The first thing I want to do is to create a GitHub developer token, access token. So I go to my GitHub account, to settings, and then I go to the developer settings, and there I can create a personal access token. So when you get to create a new personal access token, just give it a name and give the permissions of repo and the admin repo hook. Those are the two permissions you need, then you can generate the token and you will need to log in and blah 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 blah. Copy that token and let's go to our AWS console to the secret manager. There in the secret manager you need to create a new secret. I already have it configured there, but let's create a new one with a different name. Other type of secret, and then click plain test and copy the token there. And then click next, and basically you can put a name to it, put GitHub token. I will put GitHub token old because I will remove it right away. And you can put a description and just next. And no rotation, and you're done. Just go through the steps until you get the token. That's it. Now we can go to the code. Now we will open our CDK project in Visual Studio Code and we will start changing whatever the initialized application did for us, because we don't need anything of it. So we are going to the lib directory and we are going to change that class called the CDK Pipelines demo stack, and we are going there to add our kind of application that we want to run. So this is a simple lambda function that has an API gateway that doesn't do much. So this is what we are building. I will not go into the details. Go and check that CDK video if you want to know how to build this. But in order for this to work, I need to have a folder for the handler, and basically it's called lambda. That's all I need to have. And then I will put my handler function in there and voila, it works. The handler function, the only thing it does is returns hello from lambda function. Very, very complicated. And then we are ready to move on, and we can create a new file called CDK Pipelines Demo Stage. And this will be basically the deployment of that application in using the CDK pipelines. So basically we will grab that and instantiate it with the name web service, and that will create a pipeline in our CloudFormation stack. You will see that in a second. So that's all we need in order to have a CloudFormation deploy from our application. And that also will create a URL output that we will use later in one of our tests. That will create the URL output from the API gateway. We are taking it from there and we are going to then use it to do some validations. You will see it in a second. So now we create a new file, and this is the pipeline stack itself. So here we are going to define the code pipeline, and we are going to add these stages that we just created that are deploying the kind of demo stack. I know it's complicated. It took me a while to understand all these files as well, so don't worry. So here we are going to import a lot of the code pipeline and CDK pipelines like libraries, and we can start adding some logic as well to create that. So the first thing we are going to define is the pipeline. We give a name, pipeline, yeah, original. Well, we give a name, the my service pipeline. We pass this cloud assembly that is basically the artifact of the code pipeline that we need, and then we need to pass the source information. And here in the source information is where we are going to use that GitHub project that we just created with the token that we just stored in the secret manager. One thing, this is failing, and I fix it in production. I'm missing the branch. The branch, it assumes that you are using master as your branch, but I don't use master in my branches anymore. I always have my main branch as main. So if you are doing like me, remember to add another attribute here that says branch main or the name of your branch. So in that way it will get the code from the right branch. If not, it will fail. So here is the configuration for GitHub. You see my user and you will see the repository, and we need to create that repository. We have not created it yet. So we are going again to GitHub and we are going to create a new repository. Just create an empty repository with whatever name you like. I like to put some very descriptive name and I make it private, so I don't need to worry about anything, but you can make it whatever you want. So I create a repository and then I copy the name of the repository into my project so I know, and don't forget to put the branch if you have a different branch. Next step is the build action that I mentioned. There were 4 stages: the source, the build, and this is the build action that is basically building an npm project. It comes with this standard synth action, and basically it will just build the whole artifact for the pipeline. And then we are ready to add the stages. Now we have the source phase and the build phase, and then we are ready to add the stages. So basically this thing is only creating the pipeline. It's not doing anything else. We don't have our web application yet, our serverless application deployed yet. Because I want now to push this into our AWS account and basically start triggering the self-mutating properties of this pipeline. So that's cool. So for doing that, now in our bin directory, in the root of our application where we are deploying, we need to call that pipeline stack with the right properties. So I'm going to remove whatever was there and put something else. In this case, I want to run that CDK demo pipeline stack, the one that we just built, and I want to pass the account and the region where I want to deploy. This is for the pipeline itself. So here is where you want to deploy the pipeline and in which region. I will pass my account number and the region where I want to do. And then that's kind of it. One thing we need to do is in our CDK JSON add one more property, the core new style stack synthesis, and this will help for the latest versions of CDK to the Bootstrap, and everything it's right and all the resources are available. So please add that, don't forget. This will be also in the files that you download from GitHub, so it will be there for you. And the last thing we need to do before deploying is to bootstrap our environment. So you will need to bootstrap all the different accounts and regions that you are going to deploy the pipeline and also the code that you want to deploy. So don't forget to do the bootstrap. The CDK bootstrap will create a little bit of code that will generate some permissions and some buckets and some information that needs in order to run whatever CDK applications you have on top. So this is important, and do it with this command. I will leave you the command in the description of this video so you know how to run it. So get the profile that you're going to use, get that regions, that account number, and do it for every account and every region. So then you can run that in the terminal and it will do some things, and when it's ready, you're ready to go. Now we can push all these project that we have into GitHub and push it to the branch, in this case main, and nothing will happen because we don't have the pipeline created yet. So just push everything there, and then for only one time you will need to run CDK deploy from your computer. So run npx CDK deploy, and then you can basically give the name of the stack that you want to deploy, and you can verify that from the bin directory from the main stack. and that will deploy the pipeline for the first time. It will be an empty pipeline. It will take a little while for do it, so just wait for it. I will fast forward until this is ready. So when this is ready, we can go to our AWS console into code pipeline and we can see what is going on. You will see that there is a pipeline running, and that's new. That's a new pipeline, and you can see it there that is in progress. So even if our deployment finished, the pipeline is still kind of building. So you will see that it has the 3 stages, the source, the build, and the update pipeline. And because we don't have any stages, there will not be the publish assets or anything after it. So now we let the build run, and if there's any error, like you miss a semicolon or something is wrong, you will get an error in the build. If not, it will move forward and nothing will happen. So I will continue after this pipeline is done. So now we want to add some stages, and for that basically we can just call that stack that we just did, this module that we just did before at the beginning of the video where we were deploying that web service. That's all we need to do. So we add that stage and we put a name to it, in this case pre-prod, you can call it integration, testing, whatever, the code number and the region where you want to deploy it, and that's it. And in that way you will be deploying your application. So now we need to run npm run build, and then we add everything, we commit everything and we push it to GitHub, and then the pipeline will start automatically. So that's cool. The pipeline is self-mutating, so you will see here that the pipeline will start fetching the things from GitHub, then running the build, and then it will go to the next phase. And then it will kind of run back and forward and then update itself. And then it will also deploy our lambda function and API gateway now. So when this finish, you will be able to go to CloudFormation and you will see that code being, that stack being there. So I will fast forward until this is done so you can see it in action. So if you go at the end, you will see that there is a new stage called pre-prod that has 2 actions, web service.prepare and the web service.deploy. Those are using the CloudFormation. One is kind of preparing the stack, and then the other one is deploying the stack into CloudFormation. And then if we go to CloudFormation, and you will be able to see that stack deployed and what are the resources inside that stack. So just look for pre-prod web service because it will prefix it with the name of the stage, so you can have this web service deployed multiple times, with just in different stages in the same account in the same region. So we can see there all the resources. So that's pretty neat. So what if we want to add a new stage? Well, we just create a new stage, doing exactly the same code, pipeline, add application stage, a new name, production, account number, and region. Remember, you need to have Bootstrap them if you are using this different one. Then run npm run build, and then push everything to GitHub, and you will see the pipeline trigger itself. Good. But before showing you how it looks with 2 stages, I want to add one more thing. So let's go back to the code and now add some validations. So we want to add some validations in between the stages, the pre-prod and the prod, some kind of integration test or something. So for doing that, I will be using a library that is in the code pipeline, that is the shell script action library, that will allow me to do some kind of curl or whatever you can do in a shell. So that's pretty neat. So then I can run, for example, get that URL that I was getting from the CloudFormation output, and I can make sure that it's working. If you would like me to do more complex actions here, let me know. I'm interested in exploring more the code pipeline and the CDK pipelines together. So now we can deploy again npm run build always before pushing to GitHub, so everything is built and pushed to GitHub correctly. Then push to GitHub all the changes and you will see that the pipeline starts updating. And then if we go to our pipeline, you will see that it's changed quite much since last time we saw it. We will see that in our pre-prod we will have now 3 actions. the web service prepare, the deploy, and also the test service action that will be testing that. And then we will have the prod stage where we will have this prepare and deploy to CloudFormation. And if we go to CloudFormation, we will see that we have a new stack of resources that is this prod web service stack. So this is pretty cool, and the cool thing here is if you think it takes a long time to grasp this, but then this is code that is pretty easy to reutilize. If you have multiple CDK projects, you can just build this pipeline and copy paste it all around your projects, and you don't need to do much. Everything is kind of handled by the pipelines thing. So I think it's very powerful. Maybe for one small hello world like this, it's a lot of extra code, but if you reutilize the same pipelines everywhere, it just saves you so much time on building the pipelines by hand and or doing it with CloudFormation. That is quite painful. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more about CDK pipelines, let me know. I really love CI/CD, so it's one of my favorite things. Infrastructure as code is one of my favorite things, so this combines it all. And also, if you like this video, share it with your friends and don't forget to like it. So see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!